Hey folks, so very quick video today. I think we're going to I'm going to build on the last patch from yesterday, the looping sound file patch, and this time instead of looping a sound file, we'll start with looping a sound file and then I'll add a system for sampling your own audio into it, for recording audio into your loop and looping that, which is quite fun. So basically I'm just going to open up yesterday's sound file here, or patch here, and then save it as a new file patch. So I'll call it tutorial 5 sampling and looping, because really the core of it is all exactly the same. We're going to keep this entire system of playback here. We'll move the bonk around, and it doesn't really matter whether this is here, but it's fine. We'll leave it there because it makes the patch more flexible. Or we'll certainly leave it in the patch anyway, but I'm going to move it over here. Also going to get rid of this link. Replace that with something else. So because we're not really going to use this that much, I'll just move it over there, and maybe I'll take the load bang off as well. You can see it's already loaded my sound in. If I make sure my audio is on, hopefully, is everything working? Yeah, okay. So this is how this works now. The one fun little thing I'm going to add just now is a little playback thing that tells us where in the sound file it's playing. So to do that, I'm going to start by making a horizontal slider, Command-Shift-J, right-click on it, Properties, send the upper to 1, so it goes from 0 to 1, and set my width to 195. There's nothing special about that number, it just happens to be the default width of these arrays as well. I just know that because I've done a lot of PD. So I'm going to now use my little arrow keys to move this up. There we go, and it fits perfectly. Now right-click on it one more time, and on my receive symbol here, I'm going to say current location. Then in my phaser here, now you'll remember that coming out of phaser here is a number from 0 to 1. It's just it's a wave that goes from 0 to 1, drops all the way back down to 0, and starts back up again. So we can see that by using an object called snapshot. What snapshot does is it takes a signal. So that's why it's this thick line. It's running at audio sample rate, 44,000 times a second, and it converts it into a message, into a number. So we can just add a number box to that. Now what snapshot does is it takes it samples what that number is every time it receives a bang. So if we want to see that update quite fast, we use a metro object, like a metronome, and I'll say 10. So every 10 milliseconds, we'll get an update from the phaser of what that number is. Metros need to be turned on. So I'm just going to put a load bang into a toggle there, and that should do the trick. So it'll be on, and you can see there it's stuck on 0.149. When I press play, it'll start back to 0 and go back up again because we have my start loop from beginning. There we go. So now you can see it going. Once it goes back to 0, it plays the beginning of the sound file again. So the last thing we can do is put a little send object, and we said current location. So that's what we set as the receive for this slider over here. There we go. So that's a nice little way of showing where we are in the sound file, which can be quite useful when you start doing sampling, because it helps you keep track of where you are. So it's very simple, and it's just taking advantage of the idea that phaser is going from 0 to 1, so we know that the range of this slider is also 0 to 1, and it just happens to work because math. So next, I'll show you how to write into our table. So you use an object called tab write tilde. So it's the opposite of tab read. Table read for down here, table write up here. So tab write, and then we're talking about which array we're writing into. So we give it the argument sound 1. Basically, that's the entire object for sampling into there. What we need to do is send it some audio signal. So because I've got a microphone plugged in, I'm going to take my ADC. It's the same thing that I'm using up here for bonk, for listening to the microphone for my claps, which appear to be working. And I'm plugging that directly into tab right. So that means the left input from my computer, so the microphone, is going directly into this object that will listen to it and record it when it gets a message. And the message it's waiting for is really simple. It's start. It's a message box. And when I come out of edit mode, save my patch, and I can click start, and it will start recording into this table here at the beginning, and it will automatically stop at the end. Let's test it out. There we go. You can see my digga-digga-digga-diggas. You haven't heard them yet because it's not playing, but they're there. Let's have a listen. That was fun. I just stopped because of my laughing, but so I've just disconnected bonk there. Now it's playing backwards. You can see it's using the pitch that we set up before, which is cool. When I first started listening to it, it was around here somewhere. And that's because this pitch is completely independent of this here. We can set it nice and slow. Or if we go over to our debugging thing here. Oh wait, no, that won't work. What we can do is just set this to 1. That's now playing back at the same pitch that I recorded it. That's higher pitch than I remember. Or we can slow it down. I'm holding down shift while I click and drag this. It starts sounding pretty cool. Or we can play it backwards. Now a fun thing, we can record while this is playing, right? So, sounds like a bird. So you might hear whistles can sound really nice when they're repitched. So you might hear, so I'm listening to this sound out of speakers, and the microphone is pointed at me. So the microphone's actually picking up a little bit coming out of the speakers as well. The volume's pretty low, but it is there. And you'll start getting that kind of layering effect, which can be good, can be bad. It depends what you're after. If you're wearing headphones, then it'll be completely isolated. The microphone will be completely isolated from the sound, which is great. But really what it's doing is it is overwriting whatever's been there before. But because of how your sound is set up, maybe you'll actually hear a little bit of layering. It's not really layering digitally, it's not layering the recordings at all. It's just layering like physically because of the way the sound is happening. Now, how long is this sound file that we're recording? Well, it just happens to be this length, the length of our previous sound that we had loaded in. And that'll be because when this patch was launched, it read this music box file and it said resize. So that gave us a size of 146,000 samples, which we decided was 3 1/3 seconds or so. Now we don't really, if we're just making a sampler, we don't really want any of this. It actually kind of muddies the waters a bit. So let's get rid of all of this except for our send sound 1 samples, right? Because we don't need any of that. We're building this completely from scratch, right? We want it to be a completely blank palette, or at least I do now. So what we need to be able to do is set how long we want that table to be, how long we want that buffer to be. So I'm going to make a little number box, And it's definitely easier to set the number in seconds or in milliseconds. We'll say seconds. So to convert, but we need to send a number of samples. We need to set this size in samples. And so to do that, we multiply a number by 44,100. Multiply space 44,100. So that means 1 second is equal to 44,100. 2 seconds will be equal to 88,200, and so on. We can put a number on there, number box on there, just to see it if we like. It immediately becomes too big for us to see, so I'm just going to make the width bigger, and there we go. If I hold down Shift, you'll see the number go up like that. And let's put a load bang of 2 seconds. 2 seconds is a nice length. So that will be our default. Our default will be 88,200 samples. And let's put a little label on here so we know sample length seconds. Let's put it on the other side. There we go. Okay, so that's the number that we are now going to send to Sound One samples. So that's what's going to be used. That's what's going to be used to control the rate of playback and the pitch and all that stuff. But we also need to send it to the array to tell it how big it is. So the way you do that is you make a message object and you start it with a semicolon, and that means we're sending a message to Sound One. That's this, and the message is resize, and it's a variable $1. There we go, and you'll see this change once I click my message there. There, it's just shifted everything. It's kept what was remaining. It's cut off everything else because it was 3 seconds and a bit. If you remember, it's now trimmed off the end, so it's now down to 2 seconds. Let's have a listen. And if I click start, I'll record a new sample in there. Let's see if I can, I'll start whistling and then click start. There we go. Gives us a nice, you can hear that little remaining background of that little pitch going on. A little click at the beginning. It gets a little advanced to try to remove those kinds of little mini clicks and stuff. So we'll leave it. We'll leave this system here for now. There are also, of course, methods where you can punch in and out, where you just record in the middle of a section rather than only starting at the beginning and ending at the end. But for short samples, this system works really well. So we'll just leave it like that so that we send it a little bang to record completely into our array. I'm going to pop this down here because the other thing I'm going to add is I'm going to grab my bonk over here. I don't remember what that was for. And my bonk should still be working. Yep, still working. So I'll just chuck this straight into start. And now I can clap to start my sampling. So that's pretty fun. You'll notice that one thing that's happening is you hear the end of my clap, because it's actually, like, even claps aren't very long. It's long enough that you're actually hearing the thing that's triggering the start. So one thing you can do, if that's being a pain, is you can put a little delay object of a very short number, like 50 milliseconds or something like that. And that should trim off the sound of the clap.
Claps aren't very long, it's long enough that. Claps aren't very long, it's long enough that. Claps aren't very long, it's long enough that.
So just for fun, I'm going to turn up the volume on my speakers and see what kind of layering it'll sound like. Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah. Well, that's pretty fun. So a thing to remember is that as soon as you close this patch, that sound will get lost. So if I close it, open it back up again, I've got a blank sample here now. And that's cool. That's fun. It means it's a blank palette, right? So what I would suggest to do as the kind of methodology is get it playing, even though it's a blank sound file, and then record a sample in. Sorry, that was really loud. Let's try that again. You can still hear the end of that clap, so you maybe bring that number up a little bit more. Right, that's sampling. That was pretty much all I wanted to cover, so I hope that's useful. Let me know if you have any questions, as usual. Thanks a bunch.